Welcome to our listening and viewing audience. Thank you again for joining the All Men Are Not Created Equal podcast. Thank you for joining us for this fall season. First, we start everything off in the name of Almighty God. We want to thank Almighty God, to whom we refer to by so many incredible names, for giving us an opportunity to come before you today. Our show today is an exciting one. I'm thoroughly excited because I get to talk a bit about what I love, which is the game of football. But we're going to talk about it from a different perspective. We have with us a premier NFL sports agent, an attorney, a youth advocate, a brother that's been on the grind, although he's achieved tremendous heights in as far as education is concerned, but he still walks with the common man. I'd like to bring forth our special guest, and he's here with us, and he also has another guest that he's going to bring on a bit later, and we'll get to talk about it. But we have with us our brother Jumaane Ford. Welcome, sir.
Hey, peace, brother Esquire. Thank you for having me on, and thank you for such a great introduction. Hopefully, that I will be able to live up to it.
I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will, because there's a lot that you have as far as background is concerned when it comes to working with our young people
Right.
in sports and youth activity. Because oftentimes we find in the community where, when a brother goes off to college and then law school, he doesn't find his way back. But you found your way back. Can you talk to us a little bit about where you're from and how you grew up, brother?
Yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, I was born in Brooklyn, New York, raised in the Marlboro Projects out there in Bensonhurst, Coney Island. Spent my first 12 years there. And my mom, God rest her, as a single mom, decided that in the height of the crack era that she wanted to save her son's lives and moved me and my brother to Houston, Texas by herself. And I was raised in Houston, Texas, spent my formative years in Houston and came back to New York my last year of high school. And I went to high school, majority high school in Houston, Texas, and then my last year of high school at Lafayette in Brooklyn. And I ended up having to go to JUCO because my grades weren't good, but just held the resilience, ended up at Stony Brook University, went to Stony Brook University, played football there, and was part of so many great organizations and activities during my time at Stony Brook. Came out of college and worked in the entertainment and music business for a while, and found myself in law school. Went to Fordham University School of Law and went to the night program. It was a 4-year program. I actually finished it in 3 years because I felt like I needed to get through that part of my life. And worked in entertainment still, was an entertainment attorney, and also worked with my own entrepreneurial activities and found my way to my true calling, which is a full-time sports agent.
And when you talk about Stony Brook, before we get to Stony Brook, I want to talk a bit about high school, right? What was it like going to high school in New York City? Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, man, it was
I
tough.
don't want to give your age away, but this was what, the late 80s, early 90s?
Late 80s, early 90s, and it was tough, man. I mean, Lafayette High School was rated the worst high school in New York when I was there. Like, this was the beginning of metal detectors in school, kids bringing guns to school, and fights and gang stuff. Riding a train was terror. It was a tough era. I mean, just as where you rite of passage where kids come home from Spofford, right, and go on to Rikers Island. And that was my generation of those. And so many of my friends perished at that time. And sadly enough, some of my friends from high school are just coming home from the penitentiary now.
And what, I guess, what's kind of kept you on the straight and narrow, so to speak? Although I know, when you're in high school, I don't know if everyone is on the straight and narrow. It's easy to get distracted, no matter.
Yeah, I'll give you
and everything else.
Straight answer, man. A large part of it was sports, right? But having my grandmother, who was a really positive influence in my life at the time, and I just did not want to disappoint her. And so while I may have strayed, I didn't stray too far, and I've got to thank the Most High, because so many times He protected me from myself, right? Where there were times that I could have gotten into things, I have friends that got into things, But there was something that tugged at me and said, "Don't go that way," and I went the other way. And I'm thankful for it, And I've really had the opportunity to see my life through my uncle's eyes and my dad's eyes. My dad spent most of his time going in and out of penitentiary, and I knew that wasn't what I wanted to be. And I saw my uncles getting into trouble, and I saw so many guys in my neighborhood that people look up to, but all they did was go to jail. And I knew that I wanted more for my life than that. And it wasn't easy. Like, there were some struggles, but I do know that there were people who were placed in my life to help me along the way. And without them, I would not be where I am today.
And once graduating from Stony Brook, now it's not easy to go out and get a job per se. You have several thousands of young people with degrees, and they're looking for work, can't find work, and unfortunately now we have college graduated students who revert back to what they're used to or what they've seen growing up. What was it like for you graduating from Stony Brook?
It was scary. I'll tell you, it was scary because remember, I was first generation everything in my family. I'm first generation college graduate, first generation, thank God, homeowner, first generation, and my family did not really have any troubles within the legal system, right? So there was no blueprint. There was no one in front of me to say, well, Jumaane, you've got your degree, you should major in this, or you should do this after college. So I graduated from college, and I felt like I was in the same position as when I started. I had this degree, but didn't know what to do with it, right? And so I took a job early on, and it's funny enough, it was a really good job. I worked at Enterprise Rent-A-Car as a management trainee, right? And it's a job that so many of us had. But the job was, they hire you in order for you to go into management. But being young and stupid, I thought it was a corny job because I worked at the rent-a-car center and I had to wear these stupid khakis and button-up shirts and ties. But that was a job that really could have prepared me for an executive life within a company. But without having any background or anyone to say, hey, stick to this, I left the job after 6 months for something as stupid as I couldn't have a goatee. Right? It's like, you're not taking away my goatee. Who are you people to tell me I can't have a goatee? Right. And then I found my way into the music business because I had family that worked in the business, and they gave me an opportunity, but it wasn't simple. I started off interning, and then I really grinded. I won't use the word hustle because it has negative connotations to it, but I really put my work in to find opportunity and build relationships early on, and to kind of keep my ear to the ground on what I could do. And while I was in college, I was part of the student government and like promotions and doing things. And I tried to transfer those same things, where I started booking shows for artists and started getting into management and production side of it. And so that was kind of my beginning.
Okay, so you were responsible for those dollar parties at Stony Brook?
Yeah, man. I was, and then some. And then, like, in my era, we brought Biggie, Notorious B.I.G., got arrested. We brought him to college. This is Stony Brook. We brought Biggie and Bounty Killer. We brought DJ Clue many times. I was family. Nas, Junior Mafia, Red Alert was always up there, Funk Flex. Man. So that was an era.
So Stony Brook, man, they were blessed. I went to Morehouse College, and we were just happy if when PE came down, we lost our minds, and Tribe Called Quest, we lost our minds, man. But
we had a state.
We're kind of starving a little bit in the South for the Northeast flavor. At that time, there was a whole bunch of bass coming from Miami, and the Northeast rappers then kind of make their way down there. It's too tough. But
we had the state university budget, so we had a little bit more leeway and freedom than you guys may have had at a private university.
Yeah, no, definitely. But I just want to revisit what I had mentioned earlier. Oftentimes we have individuals in our community who end up being what this world considers successful as far as education is concerned, career is concerned, but they seem to have a hard time coming back to pour into our children, into our community. Can you talk a bit about some of the work that you've done on the high school level, or even on the youth football level?
Yeah, I mean, I was blessed. My oldest son, Jumaane Jr., played Skyhawks from when he was 5 years old, right? And it's when we go back,
You're one
right?
of the Skyhawks. Okay.
Yeah, I remember back when he used to, he used to run.
Parade Ground Skyhawks?
Yeah, my son was there a couple of times when he used to run touchdowns against your organization, but that's another story.
I don't know about that.
Yeah,
back and forth is kind of tough now.
Yeah, but the cool thing was that early on, because of my experience in playing, and I got to coach my first year, with him playing, I started coaching, and I found more joy in coaching other kids, right? Because who really wants to coach your son? Like, you know how it is, you've done it, and it's just tough. But I saw that those kids didn't have a father like me, right? And I know that my dad wasn't on the sidelines when I played sports. And so it was kind of easy for me to become a mentor because all I had to think about is what I needed at that age, right? And seeing the glow and seeing you filling those voids, because we have information. As you know, the most valuable thing on this planet is information. We just don't share it. It's more valuable than gold. It's more valuable than diamonds. But we leave and we want to keep it to ourselves and say, well, those people can do it, or this nonsense about pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, which is terrible, right? And so I saw the effect that I had on the community, and I saw the effect that other coaches, going back to Coach Hans, right? My guy, that we had on the community from sharing ourselves. And that's just the greatest gift and just the most fulfilling that I could have given. And so coming back to high school, coaching at E Hall was just amazing, right? And like my closest relationship.
Who may be listening who aren't from New York City, E Hall is Erasmus Hall High School, one of the top ranked high schools in New York City when it comes to
the top.
The top. Oh, okay.
Top. You're right.
They had a really good game this past week against Curtis, and as we all know, Staten Island traditionally have some strong teams, and E Hall made Curtis High School look like Pee Wee football. I'm not even gonna lie, although it was a good game, but I'm like, wow, E Hall is unbelievable. What made you go to E Hall as opposed to your alma mater?
So, well, I'll tell you, it was just because of when I was coaching youth football, I saw what the work that the guys, especially Danny Lamberg and Coach Mouse and Coach Ross, were doing with kids outside of like the top kids. And I stepped away from coaching when my oldest son went away to boarding school because I wanted to enjoy him playing, and he played on Saturdays, and I would drive up to New England to see him play. And so when he was done playing in college, there were, several schools and, several good men that asked me to come coach, but I felt like those kids at E Hall needed me the most, right? And so that's what made me come back there. And it wasn't necessarily for like the kids who went to college. It was more about those kids who they had a void and needed direction, and the families who needed direction. And now I'll tell you, I'll talk to families from any school, and I've done that, right? And I built a program, Prep Football Showcase, where I put kids on buses and take them to prep schools and place, multiple kids in different schools at no profit to myself, fully, and most of it out of my pocket and the generosity of other schools, because the most valuable thing you can give your kid is education, right? And if my kid had that privilege, why wouldn't I share it with other people? And so while not being for everyone, you just want to know that there are options for everyone.
Got it. And Coach, we want to thank you for the work that you put in. In fact, my son is a beneficiary of the work and the trips that you sponsored to the various schools. So let's fast forward a bit. Now, once these young men graduate from high school, some are slated to go big D1, some mid majors, others D2, D3. What advice can you give to a young man who's in high school now, finishing their senior year, in light of this whole COVID and this transfer portal, and college football is totally different than how it was maybe even 5 years ago?
I'll tell you, love who love you, right? That's the most important advice I can give you. Don't chase jerseys. Don't chase divisions. Don't chase levels, right? College football is college football, whether it be D3, D2, NAIA, Division I, FBS, FCS, right? There is very few of the most elite kids that play at Division I that will get opportunities to play in NFL and stick, right? And I'll tell you this: look at the executives in the NFL. Look at the coaches. Most of them coached at Division III. Most of them played at Division III. And there'll be some that will play at the big powerhouse schools. But get your education, right? So there are some kids that say, "Oh, I want to play at Alabama. I want to play at LSU." But if they know where you are, and if they're not coming to get you, and if they're not offering you, don't chase them. Right? Or there are kids who will chase an opportunity, walk on at a school when there may have been a scholarship at Division II or FCS school that's available, and they get there and they end up in the transfer portal because they're never going to play. Right? And so as coaches, first and foremost, right, we are mentors of these young men, and we are the advisors to these families, and we owe them a debt for entrusting us with their kids, right? Because this is the most valuable asset you have, are your children. And so to trust the school, to trust the program, to be there for your kid, you have to give them honest conversations and not lie or lead them on by saying, well, if you come here, you're going to get an offer. That's not true, right? Really, parents, the DNA lottery, and most of all, youth coaches help prepare kids for scholarship opportunities. High schools, it's just our job not to mess them up. It's our job not to mess them up because we get them whole. Like we get who they are, right? And you can see, you'll get a kid, who may be 6'4" or 6'5" and 280. That kid's, there's no school that's going to help you get an opportunity more than other. Now, there's some coaches who will mess it up, right? And not give these kids opportunity, not expose them the appropriate way, right? But you can't teach height, you can't teach speed. Right, you can cultivate it and you can work on it and tell them the most important thing is a GPA, right? So you can't get kids and enable them and say, well, you don't really have to go to class, and you pass them on, and then they get to college and unprepared, right? Because they're going to have to do the work at college also. And so these kids, we can't enable or pat kids on the back. We've got to treat them the same way we want our kids treated.
Got it. And however, it's a little bit more complex than what you just mentioned, because I want to get into the weeds a little bit when it comes to these college visits. These college visits. I have some kids who have come through my program, and they'll tell me, "Hey, coach, the college coach sent me a birthday cake with a candle that lit up when I opened a box," and like the things that are being done right now is outrageous to the point where it's almost egregious. What would you say to a young person who's kind of presented with some of this madness that happens with the whole recruiting game?
If you're blessed enough to be a recruited athlete, take a bow and understand that that's not the norm for most high school athletes, right? But if you are, take a look at the things that are going to benefit you 40 years down the line, right? Like we know who these elite players, and they will be NFL players. You can identify them early on, right? And I'll segue really quick to let parents know and let people know you can't hard work your way to the NFL. You cannot, right? Everyone in the NFL, we're going to assume they work hard. And I tell this to my high school players, I tell this to my college players, I tell it to guys who had opportunities with the NFL and it didn't work out. Everyone works hard in the NFL, right? But they're looking for specific things, whether it's physical traits, mental traits, so on and so forth, that you have to have in order to get an opportunity. Going back to it with college, you really need to surround yourself with people that help you make the right decision on where to go. And that goes back to where I began on not chasing jerseys, right? Like finding a place where you can prosper and play, and looking at their track record. Okay, if I go here for this position, what's my position coach? How will they help me? Right? Forget about them winning a national championship, because if this school's loaded with 4 and 5 stars from their home state, right? If the school's loaded up with 4 and 5 stars from their home state, why should I go there? If I'm not the top player in my position, or one of the top players in my position where I know I'm going to beat these guys out, then I need to go somewhere where they're going to love me. Love who loves you.
Got it. And now it gets a little dicey as well for some of the high school recruits now, because I understand there's like extra postgraduate year given, extra year eligibility for some of the how is that working out?
So for high school students, it's tough because now schools will hold some kids back for another year, And so now they may not need those kids in this position. So they may look for other positions where other opportunities would historically have been available. And so what it's doing is the same thing in the NFL it's doing in college. It's pushing things down and pushing kids lower than maybe they should have been. And so where kids who may have easily have gotten an FCS Division I AA offer are now going D2 because these FCS schools are getting kids that are coming from the portal, the transfer portal, at these big time Division I schools because the space that they were waiting for didn't open up.
That's tough. In fact, I was watching a game the other day. I think it was Memphis. I forgot who they were playing, but the quarterback from Memphis was recruited by LSU. And he was like the man coming out of high school, like one of the top ranked. And now he's at Memphis. And I'm like, man, how does this actually happen, to go from the top, the cat's meow, as they say, to now he's a backup at Memphis. Right. And he got playing time because the first string quarterback had gotten hurt. Psychologically, how do you prepare a young person for something like that, man?
It takes a lot of grit, right? It takes a lot of grit because it's a business. And kids will find out in college, coaches usually don't get paid to coach. They get paid to recruit, right? And they believe if they recruit well enough, they'll have enough players that can produce on the field, right? And so whereas in the NFL, all things are somewhat equal because everyone's a 4 and 5 star or a top player in college that are going to get drafted. So now you have to battle as a salary cap as opposed to, battling recruits. Georgia having a number one recruiting class, there's no way you're going to really beat them outside of a miracle and, lightning striking because these kids being a lower, edge school, right? So those are the tough things. And how do you prepare them? It's really hard to, right? And some kids may not be able to take it, and some guys will have shorter college careers. Everyone goes to college believing that they're going to be a pro player, which isn't true. And you have to set realistic expectations.
Oh, got it. You mentioned, college being a business, and we know it's a business, but it seems like this business is a bit fluid. I remember the old age discussion was college players should get paid. They should be compensated for their time outside of their scholarship. And I know recently there's been new legislation or policy passed by the NCAA. I think it's the name, image, likeness policy. Can you talk about that?
Sure. Well, the NIL just passed this year nationally. Now, each state has different rules on NIL. Each school has a different rule on NIL. So it's kind of people are doing it and learning as it goes. And companies that deal with kids and, work with kids, they learning as they go also. And in my opinion, I think the NCAA got off easy because I think that the students should get some of the TV share, right? They should get part of things that, these kids don't have to hustle and get it because it's the same thing as anything before as NFL, where the rich get rich and the poor get poor, right? Like if you're not in the SEC or Big Ten or at a high level school, you're not going to get an opportunity to make money off NIL. You're just not. So if you're at a big time school like Texas A&M or Georgia or Alabama or USC or Notre Dame, if you're at an FCS school or a lower, not as popular school like in the Big Ten, you're not going to get NIL money. You're not. And if you do, it's going to be local stuff. Whereas, there are guys in the SEC that have made over $250,000, in some cases $1 million.
As a college student.
As a college student.
Wow. Do you see, I guess, some of the things that folks will kind of like worry about, college kids making money, they're going to somehow be tainted, or this whole thing will be tainted, pay to play kind of thing. What are some of the pros and cons, if there are any cons that you see?
I think the only, you want to talk about a con, let's say that a coach who coaches volunteers is the highest paid person in her state. That coach is getting paid higher than the governor. I think there's something inherently wrong with that. And if you're talking about these student athletes who aren't able to schedule a class that is in conflict with practice, right? Where they have to do everything in aligns with you playing a volunteer sport and you being a student athlete, there's something inherently wrong with that. I think that the good in it is that these kids will, because of these opportunities, will not make decisions based off of financial need. And that's as simple as choosing an agent or being making poor decisions to get money because they don't have any. Right. But here's the truth. In the NFL, 97% of marketing and advertising monies goes to the top 3% in the NFL. And then the rest, the other 97% of the NFL is fighting for that 3%. That's perspective. And the same thing aligns with college, where, you know, guys who score touchdowns, wide receivers, running backs and quarterbacks are going to get the majority of NIL money. And there'll be some with defensive players. But for the most part, it's going to be offensive players and those guys at major market schools.
Oh, so NIL, it appears from what you just described, really doesn't impact the greater majority of the college players.
And when NIL launched in July, things were going crazy, and all these kids were posting that they were sponsored or they were promoting, and they were basically getting free underwear. And that's what I say, because there's an underwear company that I won't mention their name, but had kids posting as ambassadors, and they weren't getting paid from it. Or they would giving you codes that you would get a percentage of the profits. But that's terrible.
Unbelievable. And you would think the way the NCAA kind of stayed away from this NIL policy, that they were going to lose a whole heap of money. The way that they were fighting.
Well, the Supreme Court basically changed what was characterized as a volunteer athlete, right? And that was a problem. And so they couldn't run away from it anymore because of all those things that I mentioned as far as their status and the amount of time that they put in. I think we can talk about the NIL so much more, but there's so much more work that needs to be done from colleges to set these kids up, because, while some schools produce pro players, the majority of them don't play. And those who get opportunities, the average NFL career of a drafted athlete is 3.5 years.
Wow.
3.5 years. Yeah. Right. And when you think about perspective, a Hall of Fame athlete is done playing football in their early 30s, where so many of us just get started with our career in that time. Right. And so many of these guys are done without the ability, without the wherewithal, without a plan to do anything with their life, and they're left stuck. And so, going back to it, these colleges owe these kids a lot more. These schools that are winning national championships, that are getting, hundreds of millions of dollars and royalties from these kids' efforts, they owe them so much more.
And I'm sure they can find a way to level this thing out, man. I mean, you have great social scientists and mathematicians that could sit down and figure this thing out. I think there isn't an appetite there. I'm going to take a couple of comments from some of our viewing audience. Kia Hankerson writes, couldn't this be an opportunity for student athletes who don't get playing time find creative ways to monetize in other ways while being on a team? Example, couldn't a kicker find a good way to market other endeavors? I guess he meant that are interested while playing for, let's say, Michigan.
Thank you, Kia, for your question. It's a great question. And I challenge you, Kia, to give me one ad that involved a kicker in the NFL.
All right, Kia, you better get Googling.
I challenge you, right? Maybe Adam Vinatieri, who's the most popular kicker of all time. But outside of that, it really goes to the NFL, a sport where you can, outside of your quarterback and your wide receiver, you could walk down the block from these guys and not know who 90% of them were. And you couldn't know who they were by name, right? And it's not as marketable as basketball, right? And I know you said not currently, but in the near future. I mean, that's really optimistic. But we're asking these companies to spend their marketing dollars into faceless players. And that's the issue.
Got it. So I just want to take a couple steps back, Brother Ford. When we talk about the journey now, the young man who plays at Stony Brook, goes to law school. He's from Brooklyn, New York. He still got his Brooklyn swag with him, right?
You know, ain't
And
nothing
then
gonna leave him.
now he's now he parlays all those skills over to becoming a sports agent. What was that journey like for a young black man to be where you are right now?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you, there's a line from J. Cole that I love, and it says, "There's beauty in the struggle," right? And I'll say that it took 20 years of experience in life and doing so many other things that led me here, right? It's, having the jobs that I didn't love, but having the jobs that I love in music, right? And working with relationships and having relationships with companies and understanding the cycle that it takes to meet these players and build real relationships. And also knowing how to negotiate deals. Like if I did not do this myself in the past, building companies and working within, multi-billion-dollar companies, I would not be able to do the things that I'm doing now. And so being the cat from Brooklyn, I mean, I've always kept my Brooklyn savvy, if you want to put it that way, right? I've kept that, and I've also paid attention, and I've looked and listened more than I've spoken. And that's just it. And I've aligned myself. I said to someone earlier that I sought out mentors. Right? I sought out people who were from similar backgrounds or who were in positions that I wanted to be in. And I stuck close to them, and I shut up and I just rode their coattail and getting all the information I can get.
And now I understand you're a principal at Vanguard Sports, or what position do you hold? And if you could talk
Yeah,
to us.
I'm not the principal. The great Joby Brain's the principal. Don't give me that.
Okay.
Just all right.
I don't have
The great Joby Brain.
that from the record, y'all.
Yeah, no, please strike that. I am a contract advisor. I'm an agent at Vanguard Sports. I've been here going on 4 years. I love it. I work with a great group of people, Black-owned agency, where we are fully invested in the success of Black men and white men also, but majority of our clients are Black on and off the field. And so I'm blessed with that opportunity to be a part of that.
And I visited your website, and I see you have a bevy of young people at like major schools who are on the cusp of, getting drafted, and you also have current professional athletes as well. How do you make the transition from representing, or not representing, excuse me, from working with a college player to now working with a multi-millionaire college player who's never seen more than $100 in his pocket?
Facts. So many of them.
His whole life. How's that relationship?
I mean, it's so for me, the first thing that I do in recruiting is I identify the talent, right? Because without talent, it doesn't make sense. But second, equally important, I identify families, right? Mm-hmm. Because I only work with players, I only recruit players that have adults involved in the decision making. And it doesn't mean that mom and dad have to be the Huxtables or come from this great background. But what it does mean is that there's an adult involved, whether it's a coach or a mentor or a single mom or a single dad or, a couple together, because it's a collaborative effect. And so many times there are other agents who may not be as scrupulous as I am, right? And will dangle things in front of their faces to get them to sign with them. And I don't do that. Right. So I offer real meat on the bones and representation, because you turn on the news all the time. There are players that get in trouble, and you look a little deeper and you look underneath and you find out that a lot of these players are usually represented by the same agent or agency. Right.
Wow.
Yeah, because so many of them are enablers. Right. There's enablers, but we like to say that we empower. Right. And we not only empower a player, but we empower families. And it's so important that we do that.
Interesting. For our viewers who have just joined us, we're here with Jumaane Ford, NFL sports agent at Vanguard Sports, attorney at law. He's from the home team here in New York City, and I think he may have residence somewhere else, but once a New Yorker, always a New Yorker.
Absolutely. I still own property in New York, so don't get it twisted.
There you go. There you go. So you probably still can vote here. All right. All right.
Don't say that. No. Don't get me in trouble.
We're currently waiting for
Chase
Lane, who Agent Ford has been mentoring for quite some time, but we understand he's a wide receiver at Texas A&M. Yes, the Texas A&M that beat the almighty Alabama team. But we understand he's coming from practice. He should be joining us shortly. But we'll wait. As soon as he comes on, we'll put him on and have some conversation with him. But I would like to continue our conversation.
Absolutely,
Jumaane, if you don't mind. When we're talking about college players balancing the books, and we know the rigors of college football. I played football at Morehouse College, and it wasn't competitive at the level that the big boys were, but it was still demanding. I mean, waking up to practice early in the morning, going to practice, going to class, school session, and then turning around and doing it all over again. And you're expected to compete in the classroom with folks who pops have a trust fund somewhere, and the only thing they do is get up in the morning and go to school. So what do you say to some of our college players who's transitioning from high school to now this college environment, as you mentioned, business environment, because they're going to dump $250,000, $300,000 in your education. They want something in return. So what do you say to young people in terms of balancing that?
You have to find someone within the college, and most of these colleges and most of these teams have like mentors. They give you advisors. Some schools like A&M has a spiritual advisor, right? Who is more than just a spiritual advisor, but someone who you can talk to when you're going through things. And because it's a big deal, it's a transition when you leave home, right? No matter where you go. And as I said earlier, football is football. D2 football is serious football. Only difference is you may not be playing against a lineman that's 6'5", right? Your lineman may be 6'2", but that 6'2" lineman is angry, right?
He's bringing it.
So that's the only difference is the elite size, but the play is still serious, right? And those guys are playing their heart out for the love of football because they're not getting paid to be there, right? So many, I don't know if Division II offers scholarships. I know they may give aid or maybe merit aid, academic aid that translate over to football, but it's real. So what I'll say is you still have to get those GPAs, man, because GPA never goes away. And there'll be someday that they will take that helmet away from you. In most cases, it's before you're ready. And we've got to focus on the other 40 years of your life, right? Because once again, you could play football for 3.5 years, but the rest of your career is going to be 40 plus years if you're lucky, right? And so that's the things that I like to focus on. And even for my guys who are drafted, the guys that are drafted in the first round, the first conversations I have with them are life after football.
So at Vanguard Sports, what is the scope of the services that you all provide? Because it appears from a layperson that some of these agencies are not preparing or helping these pro athletes make wise decisions.
Right.
So what makes Vanguard, you think, a bit different than some of the competitors out there?
I mean, just the things that I stated, life after football is a priority. We have a team of people in place for people who help set up trust, charitable organizations. We have a full-time PhD psychologist on staff, a brother named Dr. Herb Martin, who only works with us as an agency, who's contracted by teams in all sports, but he works with us. We have a character development person in John Guy, who was the former head of player development for the Bills and Rams, coached at Alabama, the great Derek Thomas, coached the great Lawrence Taylor at University of North Carolina. So these are the people that we surround your kids with. And it's not just about football. I mean, Joby Branyan has been an agent for 27 years, has negotiated over $1 billion in contracts within his career. And he's someone that I strive to be like because we care about things outside of football. It's like we represent men who happen to play football, not just football players. And if you focus on the man and the person, that's more important than just a player. Because once again, when that guy's done playing football, we help guys with transition out to football, whether it be, hey, listen, if you want to coach high school football when you're done, we like to put you in that position where you don't have to worry about things or do other things. If you want to go into business, we'll help you with that while you're playing. Because, we represent Von Miller, right? Who's one of the most popular defensive players, Super Bowl MVP, and he has a chicken farm. I'm sure you heard of the chicken farm. Right?
Yep.
What we've done, we help them put the chicken farm together because whatever school you come from, we tap into the alumni in whatever city you're going to, and we help you while you're playing because it's a lot easier to get someone to pick the phone up while you're playing as opposed to when you're retired.
Correct. Again, we're waiting for brother Chase Lane, who is the wide receiver at Texas A&M.
He just texted me. He just got out, so he just got out of practice.
Oh man, and we're super grateful for his effort to come on because that is no joke. We're talking about a long day, maybe lifting weights in the morning, classes in the morning, practice.
He just logged on. I think he's on now, so you could try to get him in.
Oh, okay. I'm waiting. He's not on yet. As soon as he comes in the green room, we'll bring him right on. Kia has two questions. I'll let you answer his first question, then we'll go into the second question. He says,
"Hold on, did you find him?"
No, Chase is not on yet.
Hold on 1 second. I'm gonna tell him
that link that I had sent.
Yeah, I think it was something else. So I think it was the Google. So hold on, please. You can ask the question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Kia went back to if that kicker was also into boxing, let's say, could that kicker make money off of, say, promoting boxing apparel while playing football?
Sure, he could. Now he could, yes.
So what, I guess the follow-up question is, what is off limits when it comes to the NFL?
Each school is different, right? So in some cases, it may be, I know liquor is off limits. Anything that has to do with liquor or something of that sort. There may be conflicts. If it's an Adidas school, you can't do Nike. Right? There's different conflicts. Gambling, those are off limits. Some schools may not let you use. You may not be able to.
Chase is on, and I'm going to bring him into our studio. Chase Lane. Thank you so very much. Oh man, and he just got knocked off. That's that Wi-Fi at Texas A&M. We got to talk about that.
I don't know why that facility is $1 billion facility.
Exactly. In the meantime, Kia says, as an agent, do you think it's your business acumen or your relationships that's more important to secure athletes?
It's both. It's both. I mean, if you have all the business acumen in the world, but not the ability to relate to people, then it doesn't matter. But if my relationship ability is great, but I have no business acumen or the ability to negotiate contracts, then I'm not good as an agent. Like, you can love me all you want, but if you don't feel confident in my ability as an agent, then you shouldn't choose me to represent you.
Great answer. Okay, we have our student athlete, the man who plays wide receiver for Texas A&M, Chase Lane. Young brother, I just want to say thank you so very much for giving us your time. I know it's a very, very hectic time for you in the middle of the season. Your days are super long, and for you to give us a couple of minutes of your time, just want to say thank you.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Very clearly. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you having me on. Sorry I'm kind of late getting out of practice. Jumaane, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Glad to be here.
Man, Brother Lane, can you just give us what does your day-to-day look like as a college athlete at a major school And thank you, number one, for knocking off Alabama. I got to say that. All right, we want to thank you for that.
Yeah.
but what does it look like a typical day?
Just waking up, having morning workouts, getting that out the way by 8 o'clock, coming in for treatment. Got some nicked up, some injuries right now, trying to get healthy. After that, I got 3 classes on the day, so I try to go there, knock out my classes, go home for a little bit, take probably like an hour nap, come back, get more treatment for the day before practice, before meetings, go to meetings, and then go to practice and go home, eat dinner, watch film, do homework, and it's just wake up, do it again.
Man, and this is what, 5 days out the week, 3 days out the week? Any
4.
days off? What is it like? You said 5 days?
4 days. That fifth day is like a walkthrough day before our game on Saturday. So
Okay, and what is it like for a home game on Saturday? What does that schedule look like?
so on Fridays we come up here, meetings around 2 o'clock. Get those done. Go to the walkthrough, kind of just go through our plays and the install we've installed during the week. If we have a night game on Saturday, we'll have a team dinner, and then we'll have a team movie. And then after the team movie, we'll go to the hotel, have more meetings, watch film as a team, as an offense. And then Saturday morning, have more meetings and game. And just do that and just bus over to the stadium.
Okay, and you're from Texas, correct?
Yes, sir. Houston, Texas.
Houston, Texas. How far is I guess your home from the university?
No traffic, probably hour 20, hour 30.
Oh, okay. So your friends and family get to see you quite often in terms of playing.
And so that was a big thing for me when I was choosing the school to play for. I wanted to be. I'm a big family guy. I'm very family oriented. So just the opportunity to have my family come every Saturday and see me play was a big thing for me.
Let me interject really quickly. He's being mine. His father, Dr. Austin Lane, is the chancellor and the head of Southern Illinois University. He's the president of the university.
Yeah. Okay. So you grew up around education, then, huh?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Great stuff. And when we talk about, we had a prior conversation with Jumaane regarding education and transitioning from high school to college. What were some of your biggest fears as far as that transition is concerned, if you had any?
Just from being the guy. Everyone's like the guy in high school, and just being the number one option and just having to adapt to a new role and learning a new offense and just knowing that you're going to the school, SEC and the Power Five, to a good institution who already has guys on their roster. So that was one thing for me. Just learning how to just be a man. So growing up, we all did it. People that went to college is trying to be away from my family. Me and my father were really close. So just trying to live without my dad was still having my dad's teachings in the back of my mind. Yeah, those are probably the two big things for me in my transition into college.
So how instrumental was your parents in helping you to select Texas A&M, and what other schools recruited you?
So if it was for Texas A&M, I was looking at Oregon. Those were pretty in Washington. LSU, Oregon, and Washington were the three schools I was looking at. But like I said, just having the opportunity to have my family there every weekend and being close to home, because I love being in Houston. So just being able to just get on the highway and hop down and go to Houston after a game or something, it was really big for me. And just playing in the SEC, playing in the best ball, in the best division. You're gonna have a lot of scouts' eyes on you if you making plays and whatnot. So those are big factors for me.
And can you talk to us a little bit about, and of course, Jumaane, please jump in as necessary, how you came about crossing paths with brother Jumaane?
So it was funny. So I was actually doing an interview for my school for the athletic department. They were interviewing me for a piece they did on women's athletics, and Jumaane was actually sitting like a couple seats in front of me, and I had kind of seen him. I knew that was at the time people were doing like NIL agent interviews and stuff, but I was on his radar, but I wasn't scheduled to meet with him yet. And so I did my little interview, and he overheard me speaking, and he actually had reached out to me on Instagram. and he had told me that he was meeting with like Jalen Watermeyer, my teammate, and some other guys, and he told me he really liked my stuff and that we would be in contact later on. And yeah, a couple months later, he had reached out again and told me he wanted to offer me an NIL contract, and that's where our relationship started.
Oh, well, I got to tell you, you are in great hands. I met this brother several years ago when my son was thinking about making a high school decision to either play out of the state of New York or within the state of New York. And I met Jumaane under the Atlantic Avenue train station with a bus headed to Connecticut.
Okay.
And he was able to get my son on that bus to go to Hotchkiss and some other top schools out of the state of New York, and he did this from the kindness of his heart. And just to have those young people on that bus, some had not been outside of Brooklyn, outside of Queens, their whole life, and he was able to show them something different. And some of those kids were part of the organization that I run, which is the Rosa Jets Football Association, and they still talk about that trip to this day. You know, so we want to thank you, Brother Ford. And this was before I knew that he was going to be this big sports agent doing this thing like that. So you're in great hands with somebody who really cares and someone who's extremely intelligent as well. And I can tell by the way you speak, young man, your future is super bright on and off the field. What is your major?
Communication.
Oh, okay. That's why you come across so well. Again, when we talk about education at Texas A&M, what kind of rigors as far as education is concerned do you see?
Well, you know, just me being a black student athlete here, odds are already stacked against us. You know, they look at us as, especially African American men, that we can't prosper like Texas A&M, and so that's a barrier in itself that I face every day when I go to classes. You know, just the stigma of being a dumb athlete, and you know, I just try to break those barriers down every day because I know who I am and I know where I come from. And I know we're very special individuals, black men, black women. We're all very special individuals, and we can do special things with our minds. So, not really anything curriculum based. That's a rigor for me, but just facing barriers as a black man at a PWI like Texas A&M University. Those are just some things I face every day on a daily basis. So, yeah.
Chase, I'd like for you to share just a little bit some of your outside activities, some of the things that you do on campus, organizations, and just things that are important to you.
Yeah, so I'm actually a founding executive member and current vice president of a student athlete led organization called the Blueprint, and the Blueprint stands for Black Leaders Who Undertake Excellence. And our mission is really just to educate, equip, and just empower Black student athletes here, and try to make their student athlete experience the best and make it a special interaction that we have. And I'm also in the 12th Man Foundation Collegiate Council.
What is that exactly?
The Collegiate Council. So the 12th Man Foundation is a big pool of alumni who are big names, own big corporations, and own big businesses, and they're big donors for our university. And I was selected out of 11 students on campus to represent the foundation and really just push their message out onto the current students here and try to grow their membership with current students and alumni who aren't already in the foundation, but just to go to donor events. I was out in Beaver Creek, Colorado, with some donors and with some people out there trying to just build connections and whatnot. And I'm also part of the SAC here, Texas A&M SAC, and that's Student Athlete Engagement Committee. And our job really is just to build that bridge between student athletes and senior staff here at A&M and within athletics. But yeah, just on top of that, I'm really into just social activism, and I'm not just saying that because it's a hot topic right now. It's really something that's really close to my heart, and really just bettering my people and just people around me. I just want to be a positive influence for young Black kids growing up, showing them that sports isn't the only way. I know I play sports, but you don't have to be a Michael Jordan. You don't have to be a LeBron James. You don't have to be a um, Patrick Mahomes to be successful in this life. You can venture out, go be a doctor, go be a sports agent like Jumaane, on podcasts like this, and
Yes, sir.
uh, yeah, this is just trying to just be a positive influence in life, and really just trying to make the people who admire me proud and just prove those people right. So that's really what I'm trying to do here.
Wow, I got to tell you, those are some tremendous accomplishments. I'm actually getting goosebumps listening to you because oftentimes our black student athletes get pulled from the community never to return
Right.
or never to return the way they were when they left, and to see that a young person like you is grounded and to understand the greater uh, uh, the greater mission, so
Mm-hmm.
to speak. It warms all of our hearts, and I know I can speak for Jumaane as well, brother.
No.
It's stay strong and stay convicted to who you are, and everything else will work out. I have some questions, I believe. Well, a couple of comments. Kia said we could use him in DC, but
At Washington, in Washington.
oh, Washington. uh, Impressive young man, and I'm sure they all feel the same way. I want to go back to another question that Edwin Williams posed. I think this is a question or statement. Jay-Z is not a sports agent yet. He owns a sport agent company. Is this the new route with all of the ceilings put before brothers trying to become agents?
I mean, he had the platform to do it. So, I mean, it's yes and no because there aren't many. It's really about experience and a platform. And I don't know. I like to, if you want to finish up with Chase, because he's being gracious by giving us this time. And I'll answer these questions at the end because I know he's right out of practice. So I know he's got some other stuff that he wants to do. So let's finish up with Chase. And I promise I'll answer that question.
I'm good. I'm present.
What was that, Chase? I'm sorry.
I'm good. I'm present. I'm present here.
Oh, perfect. So
okay.
yeah, so
we do appreciate your time, man, and we as I mentioned to Jumaane earlier, I attended Morehouse College and played ball down there, and the demands as a student athlete was unbelievable, and this was at a much lower level than where you are, so I could just imagine the pressures that are placed upon student athletes like yourself. And like you mentioned, you got up early this morning. Your day started out lifting or getting treatments, etc. So I do value your time and want to say thank you. But at the same time, I know we have some of our young athletes from the Rosa Jets Football Association, as well as my son who attends Lou High, looking on. They were so excited when they heard that Chase Lane was going to be on the show this evening. So I do want to thank you for that. Just to go back, you talked about social activism. How do you see the role of the black athlete posts like George Floyd and some of the horrific things that we've seen in the last couple of years?
I think the role of the black athlete is very, very important. I think it's growing at a very fast pace because there's a lot of black athletes. We have a very large platform. A lot of us haven't really figured out how to tap into that and use it in a positive light. But I feel like when all black people, but especially when we're talking about black athletes, I feel like when we all tap into that and we start using our platform for the right reasons, we can start like getting a lot of more stuff done. It's kind of hard to see because last summer everybody was protesting and out there posting hashtag Blackout Tuesday and everything, but I actually tweeted about it. I said I fear the day that Black lives be not, or I fear the day when Black lives aren't the hot topic in media.
Mm.
And you can see from our schools. No offense to our coaches, but last summer we had talks as teams as like what we could do in the community, but we don't have those talks anymore. And when a guy like me brings it up, it's like I'm trying to not focus on what the main thing is, when that's football. But football is a game at the end of the day, and there's a lot of things that are bigger than this. We can achieve so much more than we put our mind to sometimes. So I just feel like the student athlete's mind, the Black student athlete's mind, is sometimes clouded by just what we always have to do on a day-to-day basis. But once we find a way to just eliminate that mental clutter of just what we have going on in our lives, and we really open our eyes and see how we can be a positive force in the Black community and just the community as a whole, I accomplish so much more.
And that's well said, because sometimes I don't think we understand how powerful we are just to be present.
Right.
For and I get that. I'm a practicing attorney, and sometimes I have to be reminded that Brother Jacques, most Black young men don't see attorneys on a daily basis unless they're going to court with a suit on, ready to get sentenced. And I'm like, and it doesn't occur to me all the time, most of the time to say that. So sometimes they're like, we just need you to be in that space. Maybe come to this school and walk the hallways. You don't even have to say anything.
Yeah.
Just walk the hallways and have these young Black men look up and see someone that look like them, but is in an elevated state, so to speak. And I think the same thing happens with the Black athlete. For some of our young players who are listening to you right now, they're saying to themselves, I don't have to compromise who I am and excel at the highest level, which you're excelling right now at the highest, football level there is in college football. Again, y'all beat Alabama. I won't forget that, man.
my dad went to Alabama too. That's what's funny.
Oh wow! No, that was a tremendous game, and to be honest with you, nobody thought it was going to happen. It was like
I did.
Just saying that playing.
I said it. I thought it should have been for the battle for number one, but we won't talk about that. There's things outside of our control. But, that's kind of what it is. And I'll tell you, for me, and as I said it before, like I don't work a day in my life. Like I'm get to be surrounded by young men like him. And I mean, Chase is an exception, right? Like he's one of the most special young men you will meet. Forget about football, right? He's just one of the most special young men you will ever come across. He just happens to play football. And that's the distinction that we have to continue to make, to where our kids and as they're coming up, we can't inundate them with making them believe that they are one thing, right? But that they can do many things and they can be many things. And, sports is just a vehicle. Like if, Chase playing football allows him to be the vehicle for so much change. And what he didn't mention was his support of women's sports on campus. And he's been a huge advocate and it's gotten national coverage for that because they don't get the same respect. They don't get the same attendance. They don't have the same voice that, men's sports do. And so us using our voices for that and his voice for that is really important. And there's a question for Chase that I'm sure he'd love to answer.
I'm sorry.
No, he'll put it up.
Okay.
I can see the question. You can't see it because you're on the
What would you like to do after football? After football, I pretty much, God has a plan for everything. But if it could be my way, I'm getting my bachelor's in communication.
Nice.
Getting a master's in sports management. I'm actually graduating early, so I'm graduating in May of next year, and my master's. Hopefully, I can just do that. And, make it to the league. That's the plan for me. But after football, I want to get into sports broadcasting. I want to be an analyst and getting I'm on podcasts like this. This is a really cool setup. I like it. And after that, I want to be an AD.
In communications, brother.
And someday be a U.S. senator and be president too. So let's not run his major corporation on the way there. This Chase will do anything he wants to do, and I hope to be able to be part of that.
Yes, sir. And any way that I could assist, if you're running for any one of those high offices, senator, congressman, whatever the case may be, Jumaane will just give me a call, and I'm there.
Yes, sir.
Passing out leaflets or putting up posters, whatever it is.
So, are you from New York?
Yes, sir.
Okay, my pop's from Hackensack.
Oh, okay. Okay, right there in the tri-state area. Good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, Chase, is there any questions that you have for your agent, brother?
Really,
Jumaane?
for the both of y'all, just black men, we go through so many adversities, and um, I feel like we're taught to bottle those up and just swallow it hard, and I know that can be very detrimental to our mental health. So, just on y'all's journeys to get to where y'all are today, how did y'all deal with those adversities and those hard times to prosper to where y'all are now?
Wow.
You want to answer
I'll let you go. I'll let you go first.
I mean, yeah, I'll go first because my path was not as traditional as so many others. Man, I'm made here by skin and bones, and I'm thankful, and that's why it's so important for me to give back. And this is just a blessing to be able to touch people and to talk to people. But I mean, therapy, right? Like I'm in therapy every week, and it's just important. Like I embrace therapy. We need to be able to talk. I'm purposeful. I tell people all the time, there's no such, instead of the search for perfection, search for purpose is more important, right? Be purposeful because perfection, who knows if we'll ever seek it. Like for me, a perfect life is going to open the door and my kids run into my arms. Like that's perfect, and that's life, and that makes me rich beyond measure. But in all seriousness, you have to be able to be purposeful in your relationships. I tell my friends, I tell my guy friends, I love them. Within every conversation, I speak. I'm transparent about things that are going on in my life, so that it makes you more comfortable to share the things that are going on in your life. And you got to check in. Like there's a saying that, checking on your strong friends, but it's real, right? Like especially now in this time and at the age that, Jock and, you and I are at, where we're losing friends from these natural causes, right? And so many of them are because of stress and the things that we eat or the things that we use to compensate for the things that are going on in our life that aren't natural. And so for me being a black man in this country where the stacked against me, and I mean against me, right? Like I was born from nothing. I was born to an 18-year-old mom who had a GED, and my dad was in prison while I was born, right? So I'm not supposed to be here. And so I think about that, and I look at kids who need something more than what they're giving. And so I have to be honest and say that I have the ability now. I don't do anything for money, right? Like I'm privileged, and it took me a long time to become successful in other measures to where money doesn't drive me, right? Relationships and purpose drives me, right? And you have to search for that and understand that your life and your schedule is your own. It may take you, to your 40 years old. You look at all the great men that hit their stride in their 50s and late 40s and so on and so forth. And if you're blessed to hit it at 25 or to hit it at 30 or 35, then God bless you. But understand that your journey is your own, and to embrace it and to surround yourself with people who you want to be like, right? Because there's a saying, if you hang in a barbershop long enough, you're bound to get a haircut, right? So you can't hang around idiots. Yeah, I know. There's no hair left here either. But you can't hang around idiots and expect to become great, right? So you have to be around people and search for knowledge. It doesn't mean you turn your back on people you came up with, because I'm still friends with people who I was 5 years old, and none of them are lawyers. And, majority of them aren't liars. But there's still a relationship, right? And I inspire them and they inspire me. Like that guy that gets up in the morning to collect garbage is an inspiration to me, right? That teacher that gets up to teach kids, and in an adverse situation is an inspiration to me. That cop is an inspiration to me. So we have to find like love and joy in all things. And it may sound hokey, but it's true, right? And Jock acts like he doesn't remember me from when I was coaching the Skyhawks. We used to beat up on the Jets.
Yeah.
When I coach you football, he's like, "Oh, you just met me."
You all got the old VHS tapes, right?
We used to put hands on them Jets, but that's a whole nother story. But like my coaching youth football now, I can't. So moving to Texas, right? Living in Texas now, I don't get to coach high school football anymore because there's a connotation behind it. Me being an agent, where I did it there, no one knew who I was, right? They knew I was a lawyer, but they didn't. And most of these kids weren't going D1. Right. And so it wasn't that. But if I coach here, it's like all these kids, especially where I live at, there's chock full of kids that are going D1. The high school on the block, is just won a state championship last year. So I can't do it. So now I got to coach 5-year-old flag football. But it's just a joy. And that's something that I'm always going to do. And I tell people all the time, I'm going to retire fairly young. And I'm like, I'm not on a chase of money, and I'm gonna coach high school football full time. Right? I've got an age. I won't say it on this podcast, but I'm gonna open up an independent school for Black students, tuition free. Like that's my plan. Like education. Like, we have to be able to give back and guide people. I'm gonna be a coach, and I'm gonna found a school, tuition free, independent, not under any state guidelines. I'm not teaching to the test because that's where so many of our kids fall short, and teachers aren't able to educate these kids. And so for me, me being an agent, it's that natural transition. First, I have to be able to negotiate contracts, but I need to be able to give and share more of myself so that they understand my journey and what got me to where I am, right? And why there's no perfect path, but take advantage of being a football player. Take while you hot, right? While people want to answer your phone and say, "Hey, there's Chase Lane," right? Then you're gonna pull on and tug on those boosters and say, "Hey, this is what I want to do when I'm done." And they're gonna say, "Oh, call me, come by my office," as opposed to when you're not playing anymore, and being strategic in that.
Right.
Wow. Again, well said, Brother Jumaane. And to answer your question, Brother Lane, in terms of, I guess, dealing with some of the adversity and this journey, for me, I think I was really fortunate attending Morehouse College for me, because I was able to meet some powerful people while I was down there. Not only my peers, but I'm talking about scholars like Naeem Akbar, Kwame Ture, Dr. Francis Cress Wilson, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, just a whole host of brothers who calibrated my expectation upon graduating from Morehouse College. It was like, listen, this degree doesn't mean anything unless you can make it work for the community. Right. So I knew coming out that, I wasn't going to be one of those brothers who would buy the New York Times, lock all my doors, and drink some lemonade every Saturday and Sunday. I knew that wasn't, my place. My place was going out in the community, doing all that I could to provide an example to young Black men. So, like Coach said, I've been with the Roselle Jets now, coaching for the last 27 years, uninterrupted. And I coach there, and I think coaching is like a cheap title to it.
Yeah.
I'm a mentor there, because I know that I'm actually giving life to these young men. And as I'm giving them life, they're giving me life, because I feel good about what I'm doing, because I know I'm putting a fingerprint on their life way beyond my existence. Because now, I have kids or children that I've coached who are young men. They're in their 30s, and I'm coaching their children now. And they're like, you know what, Coach? You remember that time you put the foot in my backside because X, Y, and Z, and you came up to my school? I'm one of those coaches that make house visits. Like, yo, your mom called me and told me this is happening. We're going to have to change that. Or come see me in the woodshed. We're going to take care of this right now. And they remember those lessons. And some of those kids right now are successful. They're either, firemen, they're stockbrokers, they work for sanitation, whatever the case is, but they remember those lessons. And I was a young man. I started coaching when I was 24 years old. Now I look back, I'm like, and I know I didn't know what I was doing back then, but I knew that I had the spirit to help his people, and he blessed us to be successful in that way. And I always kind of reflect back when things get hard on some of those men who made tremendous sacrifices for us to be where we are. When you even think about the Alis of the world, the Paul Robeson of the world, you're thinking about, John Carlos. These men gave up everything to provide an example for us to use to strengthen us in this moment that we're in right now. So I could never complain about, what's happening in my life, knowing that yesteryear there were some brothers and sisters who gave the ultimate, man. They gave. So now I got to do all that I can with what I have to lift up the next young person, and to also understand, as I mentioned before, like the impact that we have, those of us who are conscious and are in the know, that we have on the young people. Sometimes I just walk the block just to be there now, so that young person could be like, yo, that's my coach, that I know him. And not that I'm full of myself. It's just that I know that it's an inspiration sometimes to those young people who you look in their eyes, man, and all you see is death. You know, this past summer, the FOI, we went out in the communities to practically all the housing developments in the 5 boroughs in New York. We didn't hit Marlboro, we did Marcy, we did Tompkins houses, we did Ceflo in Brooklyn, some of the most notorious housing developments known for, you know, they do that over there. And after meeting with some of those young brothers, you can literally see the life come back in their eyes. This one young man, I'll never forget him. He was sitting in the stairwell, you know, the stairwell smelling like urine, graffiti, just smoke. And the fact that we stopped and said, young man, you good? What's going on? Let me talk to you a little bit. We had a drone program where we was teaching him how to fly drones, and you saw his eyes lit up, and he just needed someone to say, I care about you, man. I love you, man. You know, you better than just sitting on a pissy stairwell waiting for the next person to stick up. Right. And sometimes our young people need to see that and hear it. So that's how I get fortified when I come against challenges, knowing that we all that we got. But the best thing is we're all that we need. You know?
No cap.
Yeah. So brother Lane, and Jumaane, I just want to thank you all so much, man, for spending this time with the All Men Are Not Created Equal podcast. And we're going to replay it. We get hit on the chat. And oh man, I can't get to everything. Wow. Oh, I'm gonna ask one last question if you don't mind. It says, where is it? Jacques, did you know my childhood friend, Combat Jack, aka Reggie OC? He was an entertainment attorney who passed away a few years ago. Brother Williams, I may have known him. I know
him. He was a great dude. I knew
Jumaane, you know him then.
I know him. He's a great brother, man. Inspiration to me, actually.
Oh, really?
And yeah. I know him well. He's a good, really, really solid brother. His funny enough, his daughter, I mean, his child went to school with my daughter in Lawrenceville, New Jersey, and they both graduated. I think his kid is at Wesleyan now, or maybe Cornell where he went. But yeah.
Wow. Well, brother Edwin, that's the answer, man. And I hope God provides you comfort and strength, as I understand the brother had passed on. So thanks for that. And I just want to give one last shout out to Nichelle Brown. Nichelle Brown is a team mom at the Rosa Jets Football Association. She's the one that's cutting the oranges at halftime. She's the one that's giving children rides home when their parents are doing a stop, drop, and roll she's the one that's putting in that work. Nichelle, I want to thank you so much for all the work that you do for our community and pouring it into all of our children. So with that being said, Brother Chase, if you have any parting remarks, and then I'm going to ask my brother Jumaane for any parting remarks as well, closing statements, man.
Yeah, just very grateful, and I got the opportunity to come here and just have in my head and what I think about on a daily basis. Jumaane, just thank you for just presenting the opportunity for me and my family, and I think you part of my family too now. Just the way you interact with me, check on me daily. Just be grateful for the opportunity I have in front of myself, and God bless you.
Thank you. I mean, I guess my part of remarks is that I'm blessed and beyond measure just to work with men like Chase, to be part of these families. I think as a coach, so many times there are men, and I call them out, that take the opportunity for granted, that are predatory towards mothers, single mothers and kids, and use them for their own selfish purposes. And we got to check those men out there, and we have to keep being diligent and representing, understand that the inspiration that we have, like me being on the sidelines, being a lawyer, going to Erasmus Hall, and they're like, Coach, I got a question. And parents hit me up, hey, got a question. It's like, please. And it's funny because when they tell me thank you, I laugh because it's them who I owe a debt of gratitude for allowing me and trusting me to be part of their lives. And I mean that in each and every facet, from the 5-year-olds to the young men like Chase to the professional players. Like I am in debt because I am part of their life cycle, and I don't take that for granted. Wow. So thank you, Jock, for creating this platform. Thank you for all that you do with the Rosedale Jets, from inspiring families and even some of them I got to coach in high school, like the young, great Christian Isian. who's starring at Rutgers right now, who someday will be in the NFL. And there's so many others, and I appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. I can't thank you enough for joining the All Men Are Not Created Equal podcast. This was really like food for the soul, man. And may God continue to bless you all in every endeavor that you enter into. And Brother Chase, you're in great hands again, like I said, with my brother Jumaane. That's one of the real dudes, man, out there, and that really cares.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you again, gentlemen. Appreciate y'all.
Appreciate
Thank
you.
you, man. Great job.